Having always been interested in auctions and the skill of auctioneering, it was a pleasure to meet Eilir Roberts to chat about his work as senior auctioneer at St Asaph Livestock Market, as well as learning about his singing. Equally passionate about his career and hobby and winning national awards for both, he is a pleasure to listen to. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning.
Now, you are the senior auctioneer here at St Asaph, and you're also a member of two choirs. Would you just like to tell us the names of the...
Yeah, so I'm a member of a male voice choir located in Llanywchlyn near Bala, which is called Cor Godre'r Aran, and also a mixed choir in the Vale of Clwyd called Cor Dyffryn Clwyd.
So being chief auctioneer at St Asaph, what does that involve? How did you become an auctioneer?
So the interest started years ago with the Young Farmers Federation, and it was a competition in the Young Farmers Rally, and the task was to price 6 items and then go on the stage and sell them to the audience. So that's where the initial interest started, and then it developed when I went to university in Aberystwyth to study agriculture. I went away to New Zealand for a year on a sandwich course as a work experience part of the course, and I returned back home and I was thinking to myself what I wanted to do, and I've always had an interest particularly in livestock and livestock markets. So one Monday I visited Welshpool Livestock Market with my uncle and had a chat with one of the auctioneers, Glandon Lewis, and the question I asked Glandon was what qualifications I needed to be as an auctioneer. And Glandon's answer was, well, if you only want to sell livestock, you don't need any qualifications. So that's how it started. I was fortunate enough to be offered a part-time job in Welshpool, and then that developed to becoming a full-time auctioneer in Welshpool. But when I was down in Welshpool, I was also visiting Rhaid, the livestock market, closest to the South Wales. The travelling was quite tiring for myself, and I felt that I was losing touch with my friends and family. And then an opportunity came up in North Wales, in St Asaph, as a senior auctioneer. And I wasn't too sure at the beginning if I was going to apply for the job, because I thought that the opportunity came a little bit early in life.
You are very young, aren't you, to be doing in your position?
Well, yeah. when the advert came up, I was only 25 years of age, and then we had sort of like a family discussion for a few nights, and came to the conclusion if I wouldn't apply, maybe the opportunity would never come again. So it was a bit of a risk, but fortunate enough to get the job and haven't looked back since then.
Well, you must be good at it, because I'm told that, companies are always looking for a good auctioneer, and they're quite rare to be good enough.
Yeah, they're not easy to find.
No.
It's easier to find an auctioneer, and don't ask me why, but it's easier to find an auctioneer in the north of England than in Scotland, because there's more interest up there, I believe. But they're quite far and few between. What I was told when I started in Welshpool by Glandon Lewis, a very close friend of mine by now, and what he said was, I can't teach you to become an auctioneer. It's either in you or not, and you're going to have to find that interest yourself. So auctioneering is a lot. Being an auctioneer, the selling part is actually quite a small part of the job. People think it's just a matter of getting up on the plant, going to the rostrum and selling animals, but yes, that is a percentage of the job. But the biggest part of the job is your talking skills really with farmers, and keeping contact with them and building a relationship with your customers. Really, that is the main part of the job. And then moving on to the selling, the whole idea of selling is, the way I looked at it was, which helped with my singing a little bit, is to find a little tune in your head and then try and create a rhythm out of that tune and keep to that, because every auctioneer has a different tune and they have different way of selling. But I remember when I was younger, I had some auctioneers that I looked up to and I liked the way they sold. So I sat in auctions many times and just listening to them and then trying to not copy them, but try and find a similar tune that would work for myself. So that's how I taught myself, really.
So although you went to Harper Adams and you did the course, your main skill is learned through practice and copying. Could you just give us a little flavour of your speed and your tone in the ring? Would you be able to go from sort of 0 to 100 for it?
Yeah, so it's all different, really, because when I sell sheep, or when I sell prime lambs on a Thursday, I sell them pound per head. So the lambs get weighed in the morning, and in the later in the day they get sold pounds per head. But in the cattle, the prime cattle, they get actually sold per kilo. So that's different way. But for me to just give you a little bit of an example of selling lambs is
great.
So something quite regular now. It's usually this time, well, not this time of year, it all varies throughout the year, but at the moment lambs are trading around about £3 a kilo. So if you've got a 42 kilo lamb, £3 a kilo is £126. So the way I'd sell them, so a bunch of lambs at farm assured, 42 kilos, where we go, 122, 123, 3 bit 4, 4 bit 4 bit 5, a bit 25, a bit 5, a bit 6 bit 6 bit half, bit 67, 127, 127, 127, sold at 127, Clariselli, 127.
That's wonderful. So that skill is enviable. I mean, not many people can do that. It's about controlling the room, isn't it? Controlling the auction, creating the excitement. Do you have to go at a certain speed?
What I've learned is the faster you go, you can keep your trade up as much as you can, really.
Yeah, it has an effect.
Even though the farmers always want you to slow down because they think they don't get the best price for them going fast. In fact, if you do slow down, you kill the trade and you lose a trade, and buyers then get to suss that the trade has dropped. So sometimes when the trade is not quite so clever, you do have to pull yourself down a gear and make smaller bids. Back in May, we had a sale that I'll never forget. It was a prime lamb sale, and lambs averaged over £5 a kilo, and there were some lambs making £300. Well, where the lambs would actually start, where the bidding would start, you'd be there all day if you'd go in pound bids or 50p bids. So at that time, there were some lambs I was going 250, 258, 60, 25. So there was only 4 bids to make £10 in a way. But now when the trade has gone just a little bit slower, maybe you've got to take advantage of 50p bids just to try and help the job along.
So you're carrying a lot on your shoulders. You're carrying a lot of livelihoods on your shoulders. Do you feel an immense amount of pressure?
Definitely, I do feel the pressure. And to be honest with you, it's singing that helps me with that. Because with this job, it is very important that you switch off and that you put your phone to the side and switch it off, because people can ring you 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, 10, 11 o'clock at night, wanting you to answer work-related questions. But at the end of the day, there's another life as well, not just work. So on a Thursday night, I go to Llanwchlyn near Bala for a choir practice, And that to me just clears everything from a Thursday. And even though singing and selling don't quite go together because you need a lot of voice, Thursday evening is not a very good evening to sing, but you try and make the most of it. And it just eases a little bit of the pressure.
Because as you said earlier, the selling in the ring and the voice work is only part of the job.
Yeah.
And you are responsible for getting trade in.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's all your personality.
Yeah.
And your good name, which is central.
The amount of phone calls I would receive certain days of the year is incredible. But it's part of the job.
Yeah.
But I know it's part of the job, but it's very important to switch off as well.
Yeah. You see, live auctions it always are set the price, I'm told.
Yeah.
You know, the financial markets in the middle of London, different environment, but it's exactly the same pressures. Would you agree?
Yeah. So an auction is where you will actually get the true value, where competition comes for stock. And in fact, there's actually quite a large proportion of the heavier lambs that come here on a Thursday actually do go to London, as you said. So there'll be a few buyers that will compete for lambs and then try and get the same market for them in London, which is more of a...
But I'm thinking of the financial markets, the traders on the stock exchange. That's live auction, isn't it?
Yes.
The same, setting the price for the economy.
Yeah, of course.
And they, you know, that's all well known as a high pressure job. What I'm suggesting and what you think about this is that your job is equally, you know, your live auction. Things are only worth what people will pay.
Yeah.
And it's the same pressure, different environment.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Yes. The art world, the same. The prices are set by a live auction in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And in your job, anyone could walk into that sale ring.
That can sometimes get a little bit difficult. On store days, when usually we have farmers buying, it's not so bad. But some occasions you would have meat traders that would just turn up in the auction. And at that point, before trading with them, we've got to do a little bit of homework. And the course in Harper Adams, unfortunately, I didn't manage to finish the course because I'd moved here and I haven't really got the time to finish the course. But the contacts that I gained whilst I was on the course has really helped me with this job. And going back to what we were talking about doing our homework, the Livestock Auctioneers Association, where many auctioneers throughout the country engage with each other's, perhaps another market have come across this buyer and that maybe the finances don't really answer the needs of the auction. Auctioneers do talk to each other a lot, and that's how we get to know.
It's quite a close world.
Definitely. Yeah. Even though that auctions compete against each other, we do have very good relationships with other auctions because we wouldn't like to see anyone else getting a knock, you know, financially, because we wouldn't like to trick ourselves. So that's why we keep a close relationship with different auctions, which is very, very important, I think.
Yeah, and there are enough, would you say, stock to keep everybody in business?
Yes, definitely.
There's a lot of trust involved in this, and people do know your family, don't they? Because your grandfather bred pedigree cattle, is that right? So you're well known in the farming world, even though you're young to be dealing with all this.
It's through the family where I got the interest, especially with livestock. That's all I wanted to do whilst I was younger, was work with livestock.
So what sort of farm did you grow up on?
I'm originally from a village called Pwllglas near Ruthin, but the family farm is between Corwen and Bala in a village called St Asaph. And I spent a lot of time on the farm when I was young, working with my mother's brothers. Always had a lot of passion towards livestock and showing cattle and sheep in various shows.
So you know what makes the good animal.
Every auctioneer has an idea. At the beginning, you had to have the interest, and still now, to be honest, there's nothing worse than going up to sell something where you would feel uncomfortable not knowing what the animal's worth. When I was starting the job, I always wanted to find out what something was worth. So the way I did it in Welshpool, when I started working in Welshpool, was before the sale would start, I'd go along the sheep and write down on the card what I thought they'd be worth. And then after the sale, I'd then go back to the card and see how far I was away. So that's the way I learned. But you've got to have that interest. It's not a job for everyone, because people would say, oh, I wouldn't mind being auctioneer, easy, just go on the plank and sell. Yeah. But it's not as easy as that. You must have the interest.
So you're looking out on all the bidders. What's the coolest way of bidding? Because, some people might be afraid of twitching or putting their hand up.
Some of the regular buyers, you've got an idea how they bid, so they'd either look at you or they'd wink or twitch a finger nostril, or whatever.
What's the smallest movement?
So just a little bit of a twitch with their lips or whatever.
So you must face some quite country characters. Are there any characters that you...
Oh yeah, definitely.
You could pick out?
The variation of different characters that I've met since starting the job is...
Is that something you enjoy, meeting those characters?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
They're not all easy to deal with.
No, because you've got so many people to please.
Yes, you've got to try and keep everyone happy, really. And one of the biggest challenges I had was reintroducing the cattle section here in St Asaph when I started, and trying to get the sellers to create a trust, really, because it was COVID time. They couldn't come to the livestock market to sell their animals. So then they'd have to have the faith in me to sell their cattle. But it was not something that was happening here regularly before. So maybe some of them had never been here to sell cattle before, and I'd have to persuade them to sell the cattle with us and to have the faith in myself to sell them. And that's been quite a challenging...
How did you get through COVID if they weren't allowed to come?
So what would usually happen, even though there wasn't many of them that would do this, to be fair, they would perhaps put a reserve price down so that this animal would have to reach X amount. But to be honest with you, I was quite surprised not many of them actually did do that. They had to drop the animals here in the morning, and then they had to go home. And then
it was entirely left to you.
Yes, and then they'd receive an email in the afternoon.
So the buyers would be there? The
buyers would be here, but they'd be spread out.
Social distancing.
Yeah.
But even though you've gone through all of that, foot and mouth, the markets, would you say, are thriving?
Oh yes.
Through all this, and you're obviously getting good prices.
Yeah, but the prices now are as good as anyone can remember, to be honest. And it's frightening, the money that's involved in the job these days. But especially with the lamb prices, we're so lucky of the ethnic community that are actually driving our sheep trade at the moment. Lambs, as I touched on earlier, hitting £300 earlier in May, and on a regular occasion selling between £200 and £230 or £40, which farmers have never seen anything like it. But having said that, breeding sheep will start coming for sale now, where farmers will need to restock, and farmers are getting very nervous about these breeding ewe sales, that they think that they're going to be very, very expensive. So that's something that's going to come over the next sort of month or 6 weeks to find out where the trade of them is going to be.
Everyone's under immense pressure, aren't they? Do you sell anything else other than livestock? Land, property?
No.
Under auction? No.
So I'll be completely honest with you, I've got no interest whatsoever with land or things like that. To be honest with you, it's livestock markets that I've had my passion for since I was a very young age. So if I didn't want to sell land, obviously I'd have to have further qualifications.
I see. Now, the social side of the marketplace, the social responsibility, it's important for people to come together, people who live in remote places.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
It's a main a market is one of the main places for socialising, and farming can be a very lonely environment, especially farmers working on their own. What we're more aware of recently is people that are suffering with mental health, and unfortunately, we as a youth choir in the Vale of Clwyd, we lost one of our members.
Was that from the farming community?
It was from a farming community, yes.
It is a serious thing.
It is a serious thing, and it was a very hard time that for us, because we never thought, we never
had no clue.
No clue and no idea, and but as you said, the market's a socialising place. It's so important that people use these markets.
So St Asaph Market is such an important area, not just for business, but other things in this area.
And to be honest with you, North Wales farmers are very lucky. They've got many different markets that they can use, and competition is a good thing. There's from the Isle of Anglesey to the Llyn Peninsula over towards the border. There's numerous markets for farmers.
A strong culture.
Yes.
And it is so interesting, your links with the music and how close you are to that, because all that helps you in your auctioneering. Does it help your voice?
Definitely not.
Not?
No. It's perhaps the selling has done my singing voice a little bit stronger, but I can't commit to concerts or competitions as I'd like, because I can't guarantee that I'm going to have a voice for that competition. It all depends on the selling. And one strange thing, it all depends a lot. So say on a Thursday, it depends a lot on the weather, because if it's hot and dry, it will affect my voice even more. And unfortunately, I do suffer a little bit with hay fever as well. So throughout the summer season, it's quite a hard time to be singing, and especially when the breeding ewe sales kick in, sort of like mid-August through to October.
What do you do if you get to the auction and your voice is hurting? What do you do?
With the auction, I've never touched wood.
Not had that yet.
Never had that. But I have had to pull out of a concert because of no voice, and that's because of the selling.
Right, I think we can go on to the quick fire questions now, Sean. What's the most unusual item you've auctioned, or the most valuable?
The most valuable item I've sold is actually a Welsh mountain ram, and I was fortunate enough to be invited by the Welsh Mountain Sheep Association from Meirionydd for 2 or 3 years to go and auction their rams in Dolgellau Market, and I was fortunate enough to sell a ram for 13,000 guineas then, and that's
13,000 guineas.
Yeah.
So guineas are used to sell the
pedigree. Yes.
The pedigree.
Yeah. So it's a guinea is £1.05.
Is that just traditional?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Who is your favourite singer?
So my favourite singer, the singer that I like to listen to the most, is an individual that won Cardiff Singer of the World years ago, is Dimitri Habarzowski, a baritone, fantastic voice, incredible.
I was thinking you were going to say Tom Jones.
No.
No, you know so many more than I do. Right, which livestock auction does the best food in these Welsh borders?
well, obviously I must say St Asaph Livestock Auction.
Absolutely, I thought you would say that. Now, the best Welsh tradition that you love?
Singing.
Yes, of course. And have you a joke or a motto for us?
Oh, don't go and ask me jokes. not a strong point.
No, that is quite a difficult one to finish with. Right, well, I have absolutely loved listening to your voice, Sean, and I'm sure my listeners will enjoy it as well. So thank you ever so much. To finish, I leave you to enjoy a clip of Sean's singing when he won the leader solo in the National Eisteddfod at Pwllheli in 2023.